Paris is famously called the City of Light, but when I recently met up with my sister and two close friends, we weren't there to experience the brilliance and beauty of the most visited capital in the world. Rather, we were there to uncover and make sense of the sad underbelly that so few know exists there. The first person who made me aware of this harrowing side of Paris was a Welsh woman named Heather Young. Here's an account of her experience upon arrival about 18 months ago.
And then we arrived in Paris, and we saw an entire capital city, one of the most famous cities on the planet: London, Milan, New York, Paris, Tokyo. And there were just thousands and thousands and thousands of people living literally where cars are driving, where people in their heels and their Gucci and their Prada and their going to their jobs and going to go shopping and going to go sitting in cafes next to these people, and nobody saw them. They were invisible in front of these people. They were invisible. The entire situation was invisible.
These people Heather is speaking about are refugees, migrant workers, and undocumented immigrants. And they're desperate and vulnerable and terrified. Terrified of capture and deportation, because as bad as it may be in Paris, it's generally much worse back in South Sudan, Afghanistan, Syria, and dozens of other countries facing war, famine, or economic devastation. So why did we come to Paris? I mean, we're four American women, most of us stay-at-home moms, with no professional backgrounds in social or political issues. We don't even know how to capture quality video or audio, as you'll notice in the coming minutes. Anyway, we definitely didn't come because we thought we could free the vulnerable from their frightful plight. We'd like to think that we know better than that. In fact, we didn't come here with much expectation at all. As I reflect back on what drew us there with such intensity and urgency, I now realize it's much less about the people on the streets, evading police brutality and sexual predators. But what drew us there was our fascination of the individuals who have given so much of their time, or opened their homes, or even in a few cases, given every minute of their waking lives to the alleviation and protection of those needing it most. Who were these kind people? Why were they doing it, and how? We met a British woman named Deborah Hyde. She's a financial reporter with some killer cat eye glasses. She told us why she felt called to dedicate several days a week to helping the vulnerable on the streets of Paris.
I used to be a financial journalist for Bloomberg, one of the most important financial news organisations in the world, and it just got a little bit sickening to be talking about refugees as a percentage increase, a percentage decrease. I've just seen a real acceleration in the dehumanisation of Muslim people, and I was doing political analysis with financial markets without understanding why any of these people were here. Who are these people? What happens to them? And I had to come and find out for myself.
At one point in the interview, she questioned how many gloves could have been purchased had we chosen to donate the cost of our flights instead of travel there to Paris. Yeah, we appreciated her candor. Deb told us just a few stories of some of the people that she'd been working with. An Afghan man who she met recently.
His body is absolutely, there is not a square centimetre of his body that isn't burnt, cut, broken, and he was beaten consistently by his father because he refused to join the Taliban.
Another was of a man who escaped because he was trying to do the right thing.
He was walking down in his village, which is dominated by the Taliban. He's hates the Taliban because there hasn't been a school in his town his whole life. So he's illiterate because of them. He's half deaf because he was beaten by them. And he saw them planting a bomb, so he reported it to the police. The police decided in their wisdom that in the Taliban-controlled town village they would do the interview in his house. So everybody knew that he was an informant.
Yeah.
So they placed a bomb under his house with his children in it and his whole family in it. And he had to run away because he'd endangered his family by trying to do the right thing. So he doesn't know if he'll ever see his children again. And when he was travelling through Europe, in Serbia and in Italy, when he was found in containers because he's got a beard, he was kicked to the ground and he was called Taliban. He's aware that people think that about him, but he has sacrificed absolutely everything against the thing that he is now accused of doing.
Then there was Jean-Michel, a local attorney who helped us realize that as complicated an issue as we thought this all was, we had no idea how complicated it really is.
European regulation, you have to apply for asylum in the first country you have entered. So this means the first country where your fingerprints have been registered.
That's where you're supposed to stay.
Yeah. And 6 months after, if they are still in the country, and if they have attended all the rendezvous, the French, or any country, should take the case into consideration. But if they missed one rendezvous, it's 18 months, without money and without housing.
Without any kind of government help.
Yeah.
Halfway through our experience in Paris, we sat at a table in a noisy cafe and tried to collectively process what we were seeing and hearing.
It's a homeless camp near my house. And I don't know how to help. I mean, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help these people. It's scary because there's a lot of crime associated with the area. So it doesn't feel like something that I directly can do much about. But I do want to help. I do want to help them get off the street.
You know, we talked about everybody has a place in the pipeline of supporting on a community level. And you have a set of skills, I have a set of skills. As a photographer, as a mom, as a person, like, are we giving ourselves a pass by not stepping up to the plate to learn how to do or to be involved in the frontline stuff? Or is it part of the calling to service that you can find a niche that feels somewhat within your comfort zone and within your skill set and do it really well and have it not be like a Heather job, have it not be like a Deborah job, have it not be on the front line face-to-face, and still have that be contributing, still have that be not self-aggrandizing, but like worthwhile. You know, like, is that enough? If you can do that and you can do it really well, and does that give you a pass? And then what does that mean when you pass the person on the street? This is still the question that I'm stuck at, you know?
Not one person or organization can cover all the needs. And we each have a role to play. I don't want to put myself in danger. We clearly had a lot of concerns about how to do good without too much discomfort or even danger. And the next few people who we met addressed pretty much all of our concerns. We learned that, at least for one woman named Albopine, it didn't take much to get involved. She simply saw a need in her neighborhood, and she did something about it.
I had heard of the story that people were coming, and I thought it was very fascinating that people were actually walking to Europe, you know, from, you know, Iran or Pakistan or Afghanistan, or I thought it was just walking to Europe. because you would see them on TV, you know, they were walking with their children and their bags, and when people actually came to my part of the city, I decided to go. There was just 30 people trying to settle on the Place de la République, and a lot of cops around to harass them.
So when you say you decided to go where?
To them.
To them.
In the street. Mm-hmm. One morning at 5 o'clock to watch the cop. Because the cop would come, they had orders to fire them every morning at 5 or 6 o'clock, preferably by kicking their ass with their boots and being violent, and or with gas or water, or something again.
Not
like,
human,
what is this? What is this?
Yeah.
And so I came one morning at 5 a.m. and I had seen. So we came close to them and we said, gently wake up now because it's time to go. And I had seen their faces and their look, and I left, and it was the 2nd of November, and I thought it's really cold, and we brought them biscuit this morning, but what else are they gonna eat, And I don't know what weird idea got stuck in my mind, and I said they have to eat something warm this lunch. It really took over me. I've seen poor people in the street for 40 years, and this day I had to do it. So I went home and I cooked some rice, and I had no idea what Afghan people were eating, so I looked on the internet. I cooked some rice and lentils, and I went with my pot alone, and I was aware that I was doing something bizarre and potentially dangerous, but it was stronger than me. I had to go. And so I went, and I said, do you want lunch? And they said yes, and they had the rice, and they said it was good, and that would I come back next day? And I said, okay. And then we started to talk, and one of them asked me to repair his cell phone.
And they speaking French to you?
English.
English, using English.
And it's very important what happened that day, because they became actual human to me. I was like, oh, I can actually talk to them, with them, and he has a cell phone.
Yeah.
So he's like me. He belongs to the same species.
Yeah.
It's the same. So this is how it started. I cooked again every day, and other people helped me. Because there were more and more people to cook for, and also we set up crowdfunding because we had no more rice at home, and we had to buy more. And the crowdfunding got a lot bigger than what we expected. So we got like 800 euros in the first 24 hours.
Wow.
And we were like, what are we going to do, with so much money?
I love that, because I think it speaks to the fact that so many people are aware and want to help but don't know how. So they see that and they think, okay, good.
Yes, because a lot of people are helpless, they really, I don't despise them, because I had to cross the same border from and from going to them and opening a conversation. It was a big risk for me. I had the feeling to do something transgressive, to do something weird. Like I would never have.
Most people
worn,
don't have that. Most people don't.
But I had to do it. I don't know what pushed me.
She showed her true humanity. That is the beauty of her story. It left us wondering, how can we show humanity in our lives, in our neighborhoods? How do we reach others who need help, show them we care, that they're important, even when they're strangers? Delphine is a friend of Obopin, who eventually, and with some hesitation, decided to open her own home to refugees in need. Here's what she said about her first experience.
I was like, no, but it's stupid. I do have a sofa, so I can try for 3 days. And so a little Afghan at this time came to my place and it was funny because when you see the fears, I had this fear. I was like, he's teenager, he's 15. Okay, so he can be a big guy. And so I said to a friend, can you come and sleep in my place? And then, so my friend said, okay. So he came to my place. Then someone of the association, Roman, came with the Haim. And I saw this kid and I was like, okay, I said to my friend, okay, you can go, there's no problem. And he was just a teenager, I mean, and that's it. And after 3 days I said, I extended the moment to a week and then 10 days, and after 10 days I had to go from my place. And then I searched in my own network, like friends. I wrote to all my friends and I said, there's a little guy, this little guy who's in my place, he's super nice. He really needs, I can't imagine to let him go back in the streets, so would someone accept to help him with me? And finally after that, my friends who were seeing me with him, who came to my place, whatever, they said, well, maybe we could do the same.
Later, we met an impressive couple who have been letting newly arrived refugees in emergency situations stay in their flat overnight, sleeping in their house. Complete strangers.
It's usually the people who've arrived at the camp that day or the day before, and they're still waiting to be seen, to be processed.
Yes.
So they're not yet taken into account by the system at any level, neither received or rejected.
Yep.
And so there's this first need
this
for
floating period.
Yeah. And so once it gets to the end of the day, they know that they're not going to be seen that day.
Yeah.
So then they know that
where are they going to go?
Yeah, exactly. So then they know that they've got people who need accommodation. Then they call us, and usually by the time they actually get here, it's about 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Because
and they're exhausted.
Yeah, and they've been traveling typically.
Some of them, some are. I mean, that's what we were saying before. Like it's surprising. We saw that they would arrive like really exhausted and knackered and completely like psychologically done.
I would say they're tired, but on the whole, they're actually very optimistic and very positive. Like in the majority of cases, it's not everybody, but on the whole, people are much more looking to the future and looking to positive things than I or we imagined. They can come, they can have a shower, they can sleep, and then usually we have breakfast together in the morning. Then they have to get back to the camp, so we put them on the tram. And
we loved hearing the way that refugee families would let their guards down after knowing that they were safe and in this couple's home. After this interview, Erin stops on the street and asks us an important question.
And so is it part of that cultural thing that they recognize that in order to stay strong, you have to know your limits and set your limits?
And say no sometimes.
Yeah, and then they're able to really do amazing help because they...
And to be able to do long-term help. Because if you burn yourself out, you're like, oh, I'm gung-ho, I'm going to say yes for a while, then you're like...
And do we sometimes burn ourselves out on other things so then we aren't able to...
Yeah, you burn yourself out on things that aren't necessarily as important, and then you're legitimately exhausted and unable to give.
To do meaningful things.
Yeah. Do we leave no room in our overprogrammed daily lives to help the most vulnerable in our own communities? Do we shortchange ourselves when we fill our lives with busyness? I hate to admit it, but do some of you, like me, find international humanitarianism dramatically more appealing than helping vulnerable in our hometowns? And why is that? And what about privilege? It's difficult to overstate the privilege I have in my life. This whole experience is laced with privilege. But I think it's sufficient to say that we recognize it and we sincerely hope to use it for good. So it seems that we came to Paris not to give, but to receive, to be taught and inspired, to see and hear firsthand the stories of normal, everyday people who've dedicated a portion or even all of their time and lives to lift those who need it most. The people we met with talked about giving what you can, but having to draw a line and set limits for yourselves. I think our biggest takeaway was that you don't have to do any grand gesture to affect change in the world, but we should always be asking, what are my barriers to helping those I see in need? Is it busyness, prejudice, fear, shyness, a worry that it will break my heart to hear their story? Maybe they don't want someone to talk to them, or maybe I'll offend them by saying something, giving something, or doing the wrong thing. I'm learning more and more that engaging in social good is only effective if we're willing to take chances, to stumble, to look stupid, to do it the, quote, wrong way. Then learn, pick yourself up, and try again. So thanks, Paris. Thank you, Heather, Kelvin, Deborah, Jean-Michel, Andrew, Marion, Aubopine, and Delphine. Thank you so much for teaching me the lessons of imperfect activism.